Welcome back to Leadership Trailblazers. I'm Lois Burton, Executive Coach, Leadership Development Specialist, and your host. If you're new, welcome. If you're a regular listener, you know what we do here. We don't settle for the leadership of yesterday. We explore what it truly takes to lead in this extraordinary, complex, fast-moving world of today. So, what we're going to do today, what we're going to dive into, is what it really takes to be a trailblazing leader. And I want to talk about 4 of the qualities that I think are critical: adaptability, resilience, empathy, and courage. There is another vital one, true purpose and vision, but I'll be picking that up in another episode because it needs a really deep dive. And we're not going to be talking about these as abstract things. We're going to be talking about how they show up in the real, practical, daily leadership lives that you have. So I'm going to start with adaptability. And we've talked about adaptability a few times before. But the one reason I'm bringing it back again today is because it's the most misunderstood of the 4. And that's because people often think that this is about, it's about changing. It's about that word U-turn that everybody hates. And it's not about that at all. It's not about being all things to all people, not about constantly changing who you are and what you believe in to suit every situation. It's about being anchored in your values and flexible in your approach. In an earlier episode, I talked about a place of fear versus a place of possibility, and adaptability lives in the space between the two. Rigid leaders often lead from fear of uncertainty, fear of things going wrong, fear of loss of control. And I've said before, fear is natural, but adaptable leaders learn to manage the fear and they manage to move past it. So I want to just speak about a client for a minute, Sarah. I've talked about her before, financial services CEO, involved in a big digital transformation. And she was worried, naturally, big project, real transformation. She was worried about things going wrong. She was worried about it not working. And what she did was she doubled down on control and structure. But what happened, instead of the control and structure helping her team, she started to see her team becoming disengaged, not because of lack of respect, because they really respected her, but they needed her to be curious with them, not certain about the uncertain, because they knew things were uncertain. So when she was trying to portray that it's all under control, everything's certain here, they knew it wasn't true. So they started to disengage. So we started to work on flexible thinking, which is one of the pillars of my resilience model. And what we worked on was something, it sounds so simple and so obvious. She came up with it. I need to start asking my team what they think. And this is one of the things that I want to stress. This was a small but very powerful thing, and it changed a lot for her because adaptability is a team sport. And when we talk about how we led yesterday isn't going to lead us into tomorrow, I've had conversations with people where, they think it's going to be really complicated. I'm going to have to learn a load of new stuff. Now, yes, we all need to keep constantly learning and constantly moving forward, and new skills are important, but it doesn't always mean it's complicated. Sometimes it's something really small but really powerful, as it was for Sarah. Just that simple question. Every time that they were in a meeting, she was sitting back. Rather than telling her team what she thought, she came in later and she asked them what they thought first. And they started to really increase and improve their performance through just that simple tactic. So trailblazers adapt consciously, and they lead from where things are, not from where things were. So secondly, I want to talk about resilience. And those of you who've listened to me for a while know that resilience is very close to my heart. We've just started a new Leading with Resilience program, which is going great. And first of all, in terms of resilience, what I want to say is that there is often a misconception about resilience. We talk about it as being the ability to bounce back from setbacks. I see it slightly differently. I see it as being the ability to bounce forward. And I also want to bust the myth that this is about gritting your teeth and, thinking, okay, I've got to bounce back from this setback and now I've got to push through the next challenge. No, because that leads to burnout eventually. True resilience is about not suppressing difficulty or being performative around wellness. True resilience is about using challenge as fuel and building through adversity. So 3 of the pillars of my resilience model are flexible thinking, which I referred to before, inner drive, the purpose that pulls you forward, and emotional regulation, not being hijacked by the pressure. And here I want to say something that I think is quietly revolutionary. The most resilient leaders I've worked with are not the ones who never feel fear or doubt or overwhelm. This is not about fearlessness. They're the ones who've learned to feel all those things but not be ruled by them. Trailblazers come through adversity wiser, stronger, and more human because they learn to build in those resilience strategies. And any of you who'd like to know more about the resilience model, there is a free download on my website, www.loisburtononline.com, which allows you to do an assessment of how you stand on those 5 pillars of resilience. So please go to the website if you'd like to learn more about that. Thirdly, I want to talk about empathy, the performance multiplier. And it still makes some senior leaders flinch. I still have those conversations where, really senior people will say to me, yeah, but emotions have no place in the boardroom. I could look soft. I could lose authority. And it's not just an outdated belief. Honestly, this is a leadership liability right now because the neuroscience is clear. Empathy drives engagement, it drives performance, and it drives innovation. There's an important distinction. Empathy is not about being everyone's therapist, and it's not about losing the boundaries, and it's certainly not about losing the factual stuff or the big picture. Losing boundaries means empathy fatigue, and that is real and dangerous. I want to just share a story about a client organisation of mine. And this is from a few years ago. And they were doing some new organisational values. And one of those organisational values was kindness, which is a fabulous value. And they really believed in it. However, what happened with that value was that people misinterpreted it. They misinterpreted it in terms of, if you're being kind to me, that means that you're able to give me everything I want. And this is what I mean by about holding boundaries and being clear about where your empathy sits. So you're not a therapist. You're not the person who can give everyone everything that they want, but you are the person to genuinely register how someone else is feeling and to let that inform how you respond to them. In our episode on authentic leadership, I talked about leaders who lead from behind the mask, presenting a version of themselves that feels safe and untouchable. And that doesn't work because people feel that it's not real. And if you're working on, keeping your mask in place, you're not able to genuinely register how other people are feeling either. And so what I've seen time and time again is when a leader's willing to be genuine, to acknowledge that they care, to acknowledge difficulty, their teams don't see weakness. They see someone worth following. Trailblazing leaders understand that empathy is not about lowering the bar. It's about creating the conditions in which people can actually clear it. And finally today, I want to talk about courage, which I actually see as being the root of all trailblazing. Because here's the truth. You can understand all the others intellectually, and you still don't change. You can know what resilience looks like and still not act on it. You can believe in the power of empathy and still hide behind the professional mask. Without courage, everything else falls away. Because it does take courage to act on these things. It often means moving away from your comfort zone, moving away from things that have served you in the past, actually managing that fear that everything's going to go wrong. And courage, again, it's not the absence of fear. It's action in the presence of fear. And that means saying the difficult thing, making the call, being honest with the team, with the board, with yourself. And the deepest form of courage is the willingness to grow. Hearing the feedback that stings and still staying curious, questioning patterns that served you. Do they still serve you? Do they serve your people? Trailblazers don't wait for the path to be clear. They make the path. So, 4 qualities: courage, empathy, resilience, and adaptability. This adds up to a different kind of leader, a trailblazing leader, the kind this moment needs. These are not fixed traits, they're built through reflection and practice. And there are others, but I wanted to start with these 4 because I think they're really important. And trailblazing means choosing every day to lead with your whole self. So I'd like to challenge you this week. Pick one of the 4 qualities and ask yourself, where am I already living this? Where am I holding back? Don't fix it. Just notice. Remember what we said in adaptability? Awareness is the beginning of everything. So notice this week, and then next week, we'll start talking about tips that you can actually use and put into practice. So please share this episode with a leader who's doing the real work. And if you want to go deeper or have further conversations, you can find me on LinkedIn or on loisburtononline.com. Thank you for caring enough about leadership for being here and to keep asking better questions. So until next week, keep trailblazing.